Welcome, everyone. Again, this is Marty Bird with JMT. So great to have you here with us. This is a very popular webinar topic. Today, we're going to cover Sage Intacct, the latest release. And before we get started, let's take a look at some housekeeping notes. So, Dougie, if you want to change to the first slide, I can go
Yep.
over housekeeping. Questions will be handled via the Q&A icon at the lower part of your screen, and we will cover questions towards the end. So please don't be shy. Everybody has questions. Just use that question icon, and we'll get to those at the end. We'll save plenty of time for those questions. We are recording this webinar, so you'll get a recording at the end as well as the slides. You likely know that you're going to earn 1 CPE credit by attending today. And when there's a CPE credit webinar, there's polling questions that come up. That's a requirement of a CPE webinar. Those are very helpful for us to ascertain your attendance. So look forward to those. And there is a survey at the very, very end. Kristen will take care of your CPE credits. Her email address is on the screen. And so if there's any questions about those credits, you can contact Kristen. All right, let's go ahead and get underway and hand it over to Bulin, who will introduce more of the topic and everybody on the presentation today. Bulin?
Thank you, Marty, and good afternoon, everyone, or morning, depending on where you are. But we are super excited to have this webinar. We'll be talking about the Sage Intacct 2024 R3 release. My name is Bulin Tran. I'm a Senior VP overseeing financial solutions here at JMT Consulting. I have spent over 25 plus years working with nonprofits, helping them streamline their back office accounting operations, leveraging solutions, financial solutions like Sage Intacct. And I'm just going to say that Sage Intacct is actually one of my favorite ERP solution. So super excited to present this. And this presentation is really for you. So if you have questions, feel free to put that in the chat. And joining me is Daggy. Daggy, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the manager of the education services. I have been with JMT for 10 years now and have been in the nonprofit world for all of my professional career. I will refuse to say the date because I don't want it to date me. But I'm with Bulin. Intacct is my favorite. It almost makes me want to be a user again. So I was a client at one time, but I'm on this side of the fence, and many of you know me already, and so you know it's going to be fun. I am so happy to have Bulin with me because Bulin also knows Intacct really well, and we're going to focus on some areas that you may not be aware of.
Great. Next slide, please. All right, so this is, as Marty mentioned, CP accredited. So we have a few learning objectives for this presentation, and they are identify core new features in Sage Intacct 2024 R3, demonstrate some of the new features, and review the benefits of the new functionality. So there is a lot that is being covered with Sage Intacct 2024 R3. We are not going to be able to go through all of the new features. As many of you may know that JMT is very focused on supporting and serving nonprofits. So what we have done is we have gone through the new features, and we have selected some of the key new features that we want to talk about in today's presentation. So these new features do go across multiple modules. These modules are listed here, whether it's company level, company and administration, whether it's purchasing. There's going to be some that pertains to general ledger, accounts payable, cash management, and also accounts receivable as well. So next slide, please. So we just have a few slides that talks a little bit about who we are. For those who are not aware of who we are, we at JMT Consulting, our mission is to help nonprofit organizations streamline the back office accounting operations by leveraging financial solutions. JMT was founded in 91, and today we serve over 2,000 plus nonprofits. And we work exclusively with nonprofit organizations. We are headquartered in Nashville, and as you can see in this map, this is just some of where our clients are located. Obviously, we have a lot more clients than what's on these the dots on this map. Next slide, please. So in terms of our services, we support and implement cloud-based solutions, which is Sage Intacct and MIP. MIP does have an on-premise solutions as well as a cloud. We implement support budget management solutions. There are a few. And that includes the Sage Intacct SIP, Sage Intacct Budgeting. There is also Martis, which is a third-party solution. And then another third-party solution is Vena, which is an FP&A solution. We provide outsourced accounting services. We perform accounting operation assessment work. So with some of our nonprofit, they may reach out to us to do a either high-level health check or do an in-depth assessment of their accounting operations and identify what areas that technology can come in to help improve their operations. And assist with system integration as well. Sage can integrate with multiple solutions, and we can assist with that, as well as grant management. Next slide, please. So this is very exciting. JMT host, or actually this is our conference, I should say. It's our conference, which is, we call it Innovate. It is our in-person, it's a 2-day user conference where we bring together people, ideas, atmosphere, experience, and knowledge. You'll learn a lot from this conference, from the best and the brightest in the industry, and gain valuable insights into the latest trend and best practices. This is a great event to meet your peers. So there's, because it's our conference and we only work with nonprofits. So all of your peers are going to be there, they're nonprofits, and really learn what is the latest and greatest, with some of these solutions that we support. Our conference, which is next year, is going to be May 5th through the 7th, and it is in Nashville. So, if you're interested in going to Nashville, please connect with us to sign up. All right, so there is a polling question. If you can just quickly just respond to that. We will take a few minutes to see the results. It's always great to see sort of, where our audiences are in terms of their experience with Sage Intacct. We do have multiple presentation. I would say this type of presentation is a little bit more technical. We do get into the weeds of how does the system work. So it would be great to see sort of, how our audience have their experience in the system. So yeah, so we're kind of split. I think a lot of users here are either less than a year and 1 to 3 years. This is good to know. So let's move on. So the first new feature here is the enhanced email delivery. So you may or may not be aware that there has been some problems that has been submitted through Sage regarding with email delivery being sent from Sage Intacct server. And that might be caused by email filters, or it could be based on domains and senders. But with this DCAM protocol that we now have, we're now able to, with Sage Intacct, it should allow you to send email from your own domain through Sage Intacct. It authenticates against your domain, and this should address the issue, the past issue that you may have with emailing documents. This could be purchase orders, or it could be invoicing directly from Sage Intacct. Now there is a setup that's necessary in order for this to work, and we're here to help if you have any questions on how this needs to be set up.
So Balloon, you want me to show them what screen it's on?
That would be great.
So I'm going to go into Intacct. So when you're in Intacct, and you have to be an admin in order to do this, you're going to go to Company, and under Setup, you could click on the word Company here. And it's supposed to open up, but apparently it's not going to. Oh, here we go. Here we go. And then you have to edit, and you go to the security tab. And this setting you will need to work with your IT staff, whoever is in charge of setting up your email domain. Where it says email sender domain settings, this is where you set it up. When you click add domain, you enter your domain. So for example, if all of ours is at jmtconsulting.com, we just put at jmtconsulting, sorry, not the @ sign, it's just jmtconsulting.com. You click authenticate domain, and what will then come up is a table with all the DNS keys. Don't ask me what that means. Your IT people will know what that means, and they need to add those DNS keys to your email server, and then it'll be authenticated. Okay, and there's more information, and like Bulin said, if you need help with that, just contact us. Back to the slides.
All right, great, thank you. So let's move on to the next slide. So the next one, this is the user setup, and this is really, I don't think they're adding new functionality. They're making it a little bit more user-friendly, I would say. So what they've done essentially is that the user role used to be on a separate screen. So when you set up the user now, you've got the user setup, as you can see at the top. And then in the red box, you can see below there are the user role. So this is where you would assign user role to the user. Best practice is that you should set up user role instead of granting security to individual users, even if you only have one person in that role. Now, the other thing is this other red box is that the contact name. So in terms of the general, sequence of events that from a setup perspective, you normally set up your employee and then you set up your users. When you set up the employee, you will indicate, the information about the employee, the name, and then the email address. When you set up the users, once you set up the employee, you can connect them through the contact. And here, what they've done is that they brought forward that information that's associated with contact, so you can see the name and the email address. If you were to set up employees and you don't have the contact, especially the email, sometimes I will see there's maybe some issues with emailing, like reports and things like that. So it's important that when you set up the users, so users have email, you've got your contact, and then you've got your emails that's associated with that contact as well.
And a side note on that, for any of you that also use purchasing, any of your purchasing Intacct users, it is very important that their Intacct user ID matches their the Intacct user ID email address matches the contact name and the email address that's on the employee record. So in order for all the emails to go out properly from purchasing, and this only applies to purchasing. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to take this next one. It's a really cool feature that Intacct released in this latest release 3. It's called Usage Insights. And what they've done, and this is not a dashboard we have to set up or you have to set up. They've already included it. I'm going to show you where that is and what you need to do to to provide visibility to it. They've included this tool, and it pulls from your data. It gives you real-time data. For example, it tells you how many users have logged in and for what month. It tells you how many active customers you have, how many active vendors you have, what you're subscribed to, and things like that. It gives you transaction volume. So it gives you a deeper dive into a lot of these patterns that you may not know about, actually. Like when you first started on Intacct, how many active customers did you have, and how has that grown? Same with vendors and things like that. And so let me show you in Intacct where you can find that. So if you go to company and admin tab, it has to be a business user. And you go down to usage insights. And if you're like, I don't see that in my Intacct, you do have to give yourself permission forward. So if you go to your applicable role, and let's see, I'm going to go to the full admin user in my webinar database. I'm going to go to subscriptions. And again, this has to be a business user, whoever has admin rights. You go to the administration permissions, and you select usage insights to view and save. That's where it is. Once you've done that, obviously refresh, right? And then if you go to back to company admin usage insights, it brings up these, sure it does, these 4 tabs. So the first one gives you, and this is just my webinar database, the active customers in my webinar database. Look at from 2014 to 2024, my active vendors, the login volume, and it gives me the whole year, and then the breakdown by month. The current user count. Here's something that, so, we look at business user and employee users. Well, you're like, I don't have that many business users, because it'll be a higher number than what you're licensed for. That active business user count also accounts for our external user licenses. So because we also have the ability to log in if you've given us permission, which most of you all have. And so just keep that in mind. It includes your own business users and the JMT users. At the bottom, on the left-hand side, it tells you what modules you've been subscribed to. What are the add-on modules you've subscribed to? On the customer tab, it gives you how many current customers you have, the new customers this year. Hopefully you have a lot more than this. The year-over-year growth in a percentage comparison. It's supposed to show you customer locations. I haven't quite figured out how to make that appear correctly, but I will. Vendors, same information with vendors. And for those of you who have integrations set up, the API usage chart has now been included with this usage. It's no longer its own separate drop-down menu choice, but it's right here. So we have a lot of integrations turned on, and here's our usage. And it breaks it down by application and by function. And that is the usage insights tab, which is really cool. And if you wanted to, you can also filter at the top by which application, which month, or specific date that you wish to search for, and you have that ability. So that is the new usage insights. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you, this login volume and unique users, this is who's actively logged into that month. So in July, I had 16 logins, 16 distinct users that logged into this specific demo database in July. Okay, so back to you, Bulin. Let me switch it.
I think that's great that the usage is now part of this
Yeah, it is.
as well. And let me just mention a lot of the stuff that we are showing, especially when it comes to like the setups where you have to do on the configuration side, and Dougie mentioned that you need to be a business user. You need to have business user and certain permission as a business user. So, all right, so the next item that we have here is the document sequence information. So fiscal year rollover for document numbering sequence eliminates the need to create new sequence at the beginning of the fiscal year. In Sage Intacct automatically updates the fiscal year in the sequence so that it rolls over to the next year. Doug and I had a meeting earlier today, and we were talking about how this might be useful for our clients. And she mentioned, I'm going to give her credit for this. Some of her clients need to grab data like documents for fiscal year. So this is a really easy way to be able to sort of pull or identify your documents for audit purposes. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, it is available only for the general, GL journals. It is for the fixed assets and as well as for contracts. So it's not throughout the entire system. And when we talk about document sequencing, we're talking about the documents. We're not really talking about the sequencing that you might have sequencing turn on for automatic numbering for your vendors or for grants and whatnot. So these are the attachments that are associated with the transactions.
But the document sequencing will become available. Intacct is working on that. So in the future, it'll be any auto numbering is what I understand, but it's just not available yet.
Mm-hmm. So the next section I just wanted to mention here is the AP invoice automation is here. You might have heard or either from our team or just in the community about the AP invoice automation. So I want to talk a little bit about what it is, because this is sort of the prerequisite to the next section that we're going to be talking about. So AP automation has been rolled out for a number of months now. And what that is that you're, as an organization, you can now either send the invoice to an email address that is being managed by Sage. Or you can upload that invoice into the bill screen. And what will happen is that Sage leverages the AI machine learning to basically scan the content of that invoice and pre-populate, basically sort of help you do the data entry of pre-populating the data into the bill. And it also attaches the image of the invoice as an attachment to the bill. So there's some preliminary work that's being done. It will also try to code it for you if there is enough history in the system for it to figure out how to go about doing this coding. When it goes through this process, the invoice will be in a draft status. And if there's any issues such as, oh, I can't find this vendor, this is a new vendor, it will give you some warning or messages as to any issues that it may find in terms of completing this automation process. So that is available. And there are other things that there are also other features that you can enable settings in terms of, do you bring that information in at a summary level, or is it breaking out at the detail level, line item level? So there's there are some settings that you can define as part of this process. So this is the sort of the preliminary process. This is in place today. So this is available today. So we're going to transition and talk about what was just released with R3, and it is in early adopter. So what that was just released is the purchasing, the PO invoice auto matching. And as you can see in here in this diagram, it's supposed to streamline your purchasing workflow by letting Sage Intacct create a draft transaction from the incoming invoice from your vendor and matching it against an existing purchase document or purchase transaction. So again, similar to the AP process, this is supposed to streamline that process, but on the PO side. Now, when we talk about early adopter, really, you're is fairly new. You would be in sort of you would be a beta user as in this program, early adopter program, you'd be a beta users, and which would mean that Sage may want to reach out to you to get feedback in terms of what's working, what's not working as an early adopter user. Now, I was able to get some screenshot of what this process looks like in the next slide, please. So we have question number 2. So which is, do you feel you are leveraging the full functionality of your accounting system? So we're gonna come back and take a look at what our audience say about question number 2. All right. So, oh, it's still moving. The target is still moving. So it looks like still a majority of the folks feel like they're not leveraging all the functionality in the system. There is a lot of functionality, in Sage, and I would say that going through these what's new is part of learning what's released. And also, if you want to know more, if you're doing something that's manual, you want to see how the system can automate it, feel free to reach out to us anytime. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about this screen. I took this from a recording that was shared with us by Sage Intacct, and that is in the accounts payable. As you can see, we now have an additional screen that was added. It's called automated transaction. And you can change the transaction matching. So the automated transaction, basically it summarizes or it combines all the transaction match, whether or not it is in accounts payable under the bill that is in the bill or on the PO. So basically combine those matching together in one screen. So if we can maybe go to the next screen.
There you go.
There you go. So you can see here the automated transaction. You can, I know it's kind of small, but you can see that it's a combination of both AP bills. So if they came through AP bills, that's what those are the transactions that we talked about. And then there are those PO matching as well. So the ones on the top are PO matching. When you are uploading the invoice, again, the invoice can come in either via upload or you can send them directly to Sage Intacct. It will match the existing PO. So how does it match? Okay, so it will match if the PO number is available, if it will match based on that PO number, so the PO number being in the invoice. It can also match based on the vendor and the amount. But it will first look at the PO number. It will work similar to how a human would be matching an invoice to a PO.
Okay. All right.
We have a third polling question. So this is on AP automation.
We'll wait for that one before starting the next topic.
We still have about 30% of people who are, it looks like, not using AP automation. So AP automation, it's it's in, it's in Sage Intacct. There's a lot of solutions out there, and it's great to leverage some of these solutions. So if you're interested, if you're not using it, and you're interested, please reach out to us. Be happy to help.
Okay. All right. So the next, speaking of accounts payable, the next little area is Intacct has now made it very easy and efficient to unapply credits in accounts payable posted payments. So previously, when you applied an accounts payable bill credit to a bill, in order to unapply it, let's say you accidentally applied the credit to the wrong bill, or for whatever reason you had to undo it, you had to actually reverse the whole payment record. You don't have to do that anymore. They've made it super easy. And so it doesn't matter if the credit is an advance or it's a negative bill or a debit memo adjustment or just a negative line item. It recognizes that as a credit, and you can apply it and unapply. Well, you can unapply it from the posted payments screen. And then once the credit is unapplied, then you can apply it to another bill. And you'll be able to tell what the credit entries are, which in the credit entries previously actually did not appear in posted payments, but now they do. They show as a separate line item with an amount of 0, so you can easily identify them. And I have some examples in Intacct that I want to show you. But before I do that, I want to talk about voiding payments as well. So before this release, oh, well, here's a screenshot of unapplying the credits, the posted payments. Not curious to know if many of you have discovered the posted payment screen, because that's actually a pretty new screen as well. But if you had to void a payment, let me go to the next slide. And I'm going to go through all this because now credits will also show on posted payments as a separate tab right there, and which wasn't available before. For those of you that are familiar with accounts receivable, that functionality is in accounts receivable, but it was not in accounts payable until now. So, and here's the posted payments one. If you need to void a payment, previously you had to run the check register report to void the payment. You no longer have to do that. You can still do it, but you don't have to. You can just void it directly from the posted payments screen. And so let me show you in Intacct that whole process. So here's our usage screen. I'm going to go to accounts payable. So what I'm referring to is here, this posted payments screen. So if I made a payment, yes, I can run a check register, but I can also view it here on this screen. If you'll notice, I have some checks here that can be voided, and I have an unapply here. So here is an example of where I took a credit that was available for Costco, and I applied it to this specific bill. If I want to see the bill, I'm going to click on View. I want to show you the tab. Here's the regular payment information. Here is all the action history and credits applied. You can see the actual credit that was applied. It has a credit number. And here's the general, it's a credit. So the GL posting will not show here. The GL posting, the journal entry will only show for a check. So I'm going to click Done. So if I want to apply that credit, so let's say I applied that Costco credit to the wrong bill, I'm going to click on unapply. I'm going to void it, let's say on 08/01/2024. I could use the same date if I wanted to. I can put a memo in there, like of the reason of why I'm reversing it. I don't have to, it's not a required field. And the bottom half is if I wanted to actually reverse this as well, and I don't want to, I'm just going to click submit because I don't want to reverse the bill. I just want to unapply the payment, the credit, sorry. If I go back to bills and I'm going to filter by Costco, this was the bill that I was using. I'm now going to go apply it to this, the July 15th one. And I still have to select the bank, even though that doesn't play a part in it. I'm just applying the credit. I select it, I click apply credit, and it figures out how much of the bill is due, and it subtracts that amount from the credits available. I'm going to click pay now. Yep, that's fine. That's just a warning, a setting I have set up, and I'm going to click save. And now I've applied the credit to the correct AP bill. If I go back to posted payments, here's my Costco. Sorry, yep, that's the bill that I applied it to. I did it on today's date because I used the payment date of today. So you have to be careful when you do the pay bills to apply the credit. Then you also have to make sure that the date is the correct date for the date you want to apply it. And I just left it at today's date. And now here you can see the unapply. To void a check, let's say I want to void the Mickey Mouse check right here. See if you use weird names you remember. I'm going to void the check on the same date as the payment in this example. So I'm just going to void the, let's say, check lost in mail. This time I'm going to put a memo in there. And again, I'm not going to void the invoice. I could if I needed to. Let's say if it was a duplicate invoice or an invoice entered an error. I'm just voiding the payment. I'm going to click on submit. And now if you see here's the positive, here's the negative. You can see that it's been voided. And because this check has been voided, the word void, sorry, my mouse is not acting right, is now no longer visible here. And the Mickey Mouse invoice now has a status of posted again. Where is my, I could filter by Mickey Mouse, couldn't I? Mickey. And it has a status of posted, so now I can apply the payment again. Or pay it again if I wanted to. Okay, so that's the unapplying and applying credits. You can unapply on the posted payment screen, and you can also void checks based off of that same posted payment screen. And just a side note, this is not in our slide deck. For those of you doing ACH payments, where you're having to go to cash management to do the files, in case you haven't noticed, you can have that same functionality also in AP bills. In AP, right above the posted payments is payment files, and you can do the same process here. So you don't have to leave accounts payable to do that. All right. And speaking of cash management, let's go to the next slide. There's some new functionality, sorry, here as well. For those of you actually doing I mean, all of you are doing bank reconciliation, but I'm talking about the data entry person. Up till now, whenever you've logged into Intacct to do bank reconciliation, you select the bank, you click on, you fill in all the banking information, the bank, the date of the statement, the balance of the statement, and then you click continue. The first thing that's visible up till this point was Intacct always displayed by default the unmatched checks or debits. We didn't have a choice, right? Now, with this last release, when you log in, when you get into the bank reconciliation screen, by default, it's going to show you all of the unmatched. So just be aware of that, because some of y'all's banking transactions are quite numerous, and you have a lot of them. So if you do want to filter, you can. But it's your choice, right? But a lot of you have banking accounts or checking accounts that don't have a lot of transactions that you need to reconcile. And so you always had to go to transaction type to all, apply filter, and you don't have to do that anymore. It's already pre-filtered for you. So just be aware of that change. You're going to see all of it now, and instead of just checks and debits. And speaking of bank reconciliations, there is now also a new feature called Bank Transaction Assistant or Bank Assistant. But with this Bank Transaction Assistant, there's also a new way of importing files. So for those, because sometimes we cannot turn on the automatic bank feed because there's tokens involved or the bank doesn't have it available yet, or for whatever reason, you're downloading the banking transactions and then importing them into Intacct. And you now have a choice. You have the import process up to now, which Intacct has labeled the classic import process, that's still available. Or you can switch to this new one, and I want to show you some of the added functionality that you will get with the new one. With the new one, you have more file formats. You're not stuck with just comma separated values. You have these file formats available. Yes, you see that right. Excel is one of the file formats that you can now use to import data from your bank. The new workflow is it's the Bank Transaction Assistant, like I mentioned before. The other thing that is available is when you import using this new Bank Transaction Assistant, you'll be able to see all the files. There's like a log, and I'm going to show you the screen. I don't have data, but you'll be able to see the headers. So you can always see what has been imported previously, when it was imported, who imported it. And you'll see the new activity list as well. Okay, so this next slide has some of the screenshots. So when you turn that on, and again, it's just you have to make sure that whoever does this, whoever needs visibility to it, has the appropriate security permissions to do so, and they're listed under cash management in the security roles. You will then be able to see in cash management underneath transactions, you'll see bank transactions import file. So then you just, when you click on plus, I'll walk you through, you pick your checking account, you'll see that in just a minute. And then you can just drag and drop the file in here and it walks you through it. Okay. And so let me show you in Intacct what that looks like. So I'm going to go to cash management. I've turned it on. So I'm going to click on this. And this is going to be the first file that I do. So I'm going to click add. So even right here, it'll give an import ID, it'll give you the file name, it'll give you the banking account ID and the name that you use to import the data to. The account type, it just means checking or savings. It'll give you the date added, the number of transactions that were imported, what the status is, did it fail, whatever, was it successful, and the user ID of who actually did the import. So this is just right from when you first open the screen, you'll see all that information. When you click add, you select your checking account that you wish to import the data for. I'm going to pick this one. And you see all these headers, the last data, retrieval date, number of transactions retrieved, net amount. And I'm going to click continue. That's just history. I'm sorry, I don't have data in, but some things we just can't do yet in demo databases. This is the screen that's very important. Here is where you just drag and drop the file, or you can click on here and find the file, the browse button where you can just navigate to it manually. Here are all the formats and that you can use. This file import guide is very important. This gives you template versions of what are you trying to bring in and what's format. So for example, if I were bringing in Excel and it's 3 columns is where the dollar amounts are in one column. 4 columns is where the debit is in one column and the credit is in another column. I'll just pick this one. It'll give you the exact headings that you need. Okay. So it'll give you all this information. They've done a really good job in describing how you need to set up the file. It's not hard, it's very straightforward. But again, if you would like assistance with setting this up, just let us know. And then you can review the transactions, you can cancel the import, etc. And so that is the new bank assistant. Okay, and so at this time, I'd like to turn it back over to you, Bulin, before we have questions.
All right, thank you. So we do have some questions, and we do have some questions, and we'll get to those questions in a few minutes. So so really, this completes our presentations. What we were planning to cover for today. I know that this presentation is only for an hour, so we we were selective in terms of what we were presenting. I do wanted to mention that we're very active in terms of these type of webinars. And we have a few that are coming up in the next month. So optimize your fixed asset management, that is on September the 19th. So if you wanted to learn more about fixed asset, that's a great presentation to attend. Nonprofit finance team benefits from AP automation. So this is a fireside chat with one of our clients on AP automations, and it's specifically on Bill, which used to be called Bill.com solution. And then preparing for paperless audits is really how you're leveraging Sage Intacct in preparation for a paperless audit. So, year end is coming around, and if your year end is calendar year end, this is another terrific presentation to attend to get a little bit more insight on how you can leverage Sage Intacct for in preparation for your audit. So we do have some questions. So I'm gonna bring up some of the questions here. I'm just gonna go down here and take a look at some of the questions. So a question has to do with the usage insight dashboard, the one that we had looked at. And the question is, does every business user have to change their permissions individually to see the usage and insight dashboards?
No, they do not. Whoever normally within the organization sets up the security rights, that person would do it for the role, but then that applies to anybody who has that role.
And just as an FYI, while you were presenting that, I went into Sage Intacct to see exactly where that is if you wanted to update it, and it's under the administration permission. So in the administration permission, there's actually an option for usage insight, and so as long as it's marked check, and anybody who's assigned to that role will have access to that. The other question is there additional reporting in R3 for AI information being collected? I did check into this, and there are reporting available with this release. The additional reporting, let me just go there. The additional reporting that is part of the R3 is the new report is available through the interactive custom report writer and the interactive visual explorer. So so there's new reports being provided in that area. So there's another question. Are bank feeds updated continuously or daily in bank reconciliation in R3?
They are updated every 4 hours, and if you need it more frequently, there is a manual update that you can also push, but automatically it's every 4 hours.
Okay, there's the next question is, will Sage Intacct include approval capability for the bank reconciliation?
There's no approval flow like we may see like in the general ledger for journal entries or accounts payable or purchasing. It is done with security rights. Like, so for example, if one person needs to mark everything that has come through is matched, but they shouldn't reconcile, i.e. click on the reconcile button until somebody else has refuted. So the way we're getting around it now is that one person actually marks all the records or balances it, and another person's reviews it and reconciles it, but there is no actual approval flow yet. I'm hoping there will come one. We've logged that request, but I haven't heard anything. Have you, Bulin?
No, no, but I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea, and Sage
Yep.
does listen to when people put in a request. I know some of these stuff that we saw actually came from requests from the community. All right, here's another question. If we're using iComplete for our PO to AP process, can we still use the invoice imaging via email in Intacct for non-PO related invoice? I I would say that I probably wanna get back to you on this question. iComplete is a third-party solution, and I think, my gut feeling says that you can, but we probably want to get some feedback from iComplete as well to make sure that there's no duplication, as you have mentioned here. What is the best practice in terms of using the invoice functionality that I just talked about in conjunction with iComplete. So we will get back to you on that question.
Actually, I do have that answer.
Oh, you do? That's
Yeah.
great, Becky, because I
Sorry.
don't. That's great.
I do.
Please, please, please.
I've checked it out before.
Oh, good,
So
good.
the AP automation, it actually takes the if you have Intacct AP automation turned on to get a copy of the invoice entered into accounts payable bill, what Intacct does is gives you an email, and that email is then sent to your vendor. So any email from vendors with bills would then be uploaded into Intacct and be processed like normal AP bills, where you have to review, and the AI remembers the coding and things like that. So the question is, if the vendor, so let's say you have a vendor that has the iComplete email and the Intacct email. If the vendor sends it to both, there will be duplication. And so just keep in mind that if you turn on AP automation in Intacct, the vendor, whoever sends that invoice to that Intacct email address, it will get uploaded. If they send the same invoice to iComplete, it'll get uploaded through iComplete as well. And then, but there is the duplicate detection by invoice number. So if it's the same invoice number, one or the other will fail, whichever one was entered second. Did that help? So the key is the email address that the vendor uses to send the invoice.
And if there's any follow-up questions from our response, please reach out to us
Yep.
directly.
Yep.
There's another question here. This is on Usage Insight. In Usage Insights, there's failed API transactions. What are those?
So the API means there's an integration, right? So what if the integration has a transaction? I'll just use a transaction for example, with incorrect codes, or what if you have some restrictions turned on in Intacct that the integration didn't take into account? That will fail. And so any failed transactions, especially with up-to-date data, you would want to look in the source application to see why they failed. It's usually because it coded wrong. It was maybe a combination. Maybe you have default settings set up that are not set up in the other system, or code was made inactive in Intacct, and the third-party vendor didn't have that information yet, or vice versa.
Great. Well, I think we've answered all of the questions here. excuse me. I wanted to, if there are any more questions, please send them over to us. I wanted to thank everyone for attending this webinar. As you know, we have other future webinars coming up, so feel free to sign up. I'm losing my voice. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.